And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Barton Simmons. That's Tom Fornelli. Week 12 is not quite in the books. We're sitting here recording at 12:31 a.m. Eastern time, and we still have USC out and running in Salt Lake City. We hope that I guess that is probably going to contribute to what has been just a struggle weekend. 24-17 at halftime. We'll keep you updated on how things are going out there, but bananas night at least with Michigan at Rutgers. We will get to that. I'm sure that everyone listening already knows the result. Michigan has survived, but do you realize how many times this entire season came close to just having the what I could only describe as an aerosol can thrown into the campfire? I don't know if y'all ever had a little like campfire situation where somebody just decided it'd be really funny if I'm just gonna, throw this bottle in or throw this aerosol can in just to watch everyone freak out. Michigan losing to Rutgers tonight would have been that for college football, but we've also got a lot more to get to here. Do y'all want to start at Harbaugh? Do you want to start at Michigan, or is there anywhere else where you want to? I mean, I guess Tennessee is a little bit interesting right now. What's burning on your minds?
I don't want to start with Michigan again.
Okay.
They won.
Woo! No. We've got to give Caden McNamara some flowers here. That man had 4 touchdowns in relief of Joe Milton. Cornelius Jackson played well. Listen, Tom, if I'm going to get flexed into doing an emergency live blog for this game and paying way more attention to it than I would have otherwise.
I appreciate you taking that bullet. I was sick for a little bit there.
So I just let's see. Georgia, JT Daniels came out. Had one of the most prolific performances since Aaron Murray was under center, and yet it wasn't enough. Are we worried about the Bulldogs defense? I mean, Barton, what's on your mind right now as we sit here to try and unpack everything from a Week 12 Saturday?
Well, I think the Georgia thing is kind of the most interesting to me. I know Georgia pod jokes aside, it just kind of is. I mean, you've been sitting this former 5-star on the bench here for the entire season. He's been cleared since the Arkansas game or something. And he comes out and he is he's everything that Georgia fans were hoping he would be. Like, there's a downfield passing game. He's taking vertical shots. He's hitting them. He totally unlocks this newfound potential in Georgia's ability to throw the football. And frankly, I don't even think that Georgia wanted to throw the ball as much as they did. They just had to throw the ball because they couldn't run the damn ball. And so it's this very interesting spot here that you're in as a Georgia fan watching that game. It's Mississippi State hasn't been scoring on anybody since the LSU game. And they just put up what they end up with, 24.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Put up 24 on us, and we couldn't run the ball on them. And the best passing attack we've seen since Kirby Smart has taken over as a head coach has been sitting on the bench all season. How am I supposed to feel about this? It's pretty fascinating.
I thought it was there was a perfect moment in that game that kind of summed up everything for Georgia this year, in that I think it was a span of 4 plays where JT Daniels threw 3 touchdowns, but Pickens dropped 1, Kearns Jackson dropped the other. It's that's been Georgia's whole season right there.
28 for 38, 401 yards, 4 touchdowns, 10.6 yards per attempt. Did you see anything different in the play calling specifically, or was it just with execution?
I don't know if it was play calling. I mean, but it was definitely – no, I would say there was probably a little bit of difference in that they were definitely more vertical, or at least they were taking the vertical shots that Stetson Bennett didn't take. But JT Daniels was pushing the ball down the field, which is something we never really saw Bennett doing. He was always taking that kind of up to 20 yards between the hashes kind of throws. Those were his bread and butter. Those were the ones he was interested and capable of making, whereas JT didn't care. He was just flinging it down the field. If you were there, you go get it. So I would say that we probably, I can't say for certain, but I would say we definitely saw a little bit of change in direction in play calls, because I think that when you've got JT Daniels at quarterback, it opens up a lot more concepts you could do on offense than you can with the mailman.
So JT Daniels shows up they have 2 losses in already. They're out of the SEC championship race. They're out of the college football playoff race. He throws for the most passing yards since I don't know when, but they haven't
Aaron
had.
Murray, I think, wasn't it?
No, the stat is to get at least 304 passing touchdowns since Aaron Murray in 2013, and he finished with 4 bills, 400, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions.
So I'd be curious when the last 400-yard game was. But either way, this is like basically the best passing performance, certainly of Kirby's tenure, and you don't see it until they're already out of the playoff race. And what if JT Daniels end of the year is like, you know what, that was good, got my legs loose, time for me to head on to the NFL.
Oh my God, no way.
And then
no way.
Just right back on to ground zero. That's the wouldn't it be funny scenario there.
I can't find it yet. Sorry.
I know. I can't imagine if we go all the way back to, because JT Daniels so he could go pro, but he also could come back for at least another full year. And that's what you hope.
I don't really think he's going to go pro.
Yeah.
I just think it would be a really funny scenario. And I mean, he could go pro, but I mean, Jamie Newman went pro. I mean, he needed another season. So who knows, but
the last 400-yard game was by Aaron Murray. Aaron Murray actually threw for 400 yards in 4 different games. He threw for 408 yards against North Texas in 2013. He threw for 415 yards in 2013 against Auburn. He threw for 427 yards in 2012 against Kentucky. And he threw for 427 yards against Nebraska in a bowl game on New Year's Day.
Okay, so if Mississippi State wins that game, but JT Daniels plays as well, do you still feel like you're coming out of the game with a lot of so what if JT Daniels had played earlier?
Yeah, because I mean, if Georgia hadn't won that game, it wasn't going to be because of the way Aaron Murray played. It was going to be because defensively they were getting gashed in a way we hadn't seen in the passing attack, and they couldn't really run the ball. So I still would have thought that if the offense had played like that and they lost the game, I still would have been like, well, still should have been JT Daniels all along.
I'll tell you, low-key position group of the year is Mississippi State's defensive line.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys have been good all year long.
Don't purge that part of the roster, Mike.
Seriously. Yeah, and that's the other thing. Is this
49
a Mississippi State team with 49 players? I mean, they I was thinking about fortunately I just because it was close or it was tied or something at halftime, and I was thinking about making a halftime bet on Georgia just for the principle of Mississippi State surely is going to run out of gas. Thank goodness I got sidetracked or forgot or I didn't place it because I don't know what the line was, but I don't think I would have won it.
Do either of you guys watch the Challenge of Survivor?
No.
All right. Well, because what happens sometimes in those shows is there'll be teams, right? But sometimes one team is so dominant that they have too many people left in their tribe or on their team. So they start losing on purpose to get rid of the dead weight. So maybe that's what Mississippi State did. By going down to 49 scholarship players, they actually got stronger.
I don't think so.
No, neither do I, but that should be the story going forward. We're stronger. Strength in smaller numbers.
Yeah, less than 50, that's how we win. Okay. Well, did you ever think Ohio State was going to lose?
No. I'm surprised it was. I'm still surprised it was ever that close, honestly.
Not even after they missed that 4th down conversion, Tom?
No. See, and that's the thing. If we want to get in this debate, that's why going forward on 4th down was okay. Because again, here I'm just going to end this debate right now.
You got to set it up. Give some context before you end
Late
it.
in the game, Ohio State's
Thank
up
you.
a score in the fourth quarter, facing like a 4th and 1 inside the Indiana 10. If they kick a field goal, they go up by 10 points. It's a 2-score game. They kick the ball back to Indiana. If they get the first down, it's still a 1-score game, but it's 1st and goal, and the game is basically over because they're going to score and they're going to milk the rest of the clock out. Well, they go for it and they come up short, which starts a debate of why didn't you kick the field goal? Well, every single week, in fact, let's go to Michigan Rutgers. What happened in the first overtime? Both teams played for a field goal. Both teams missed a field goal. We watch it every week. College kickers are not NFL kickers. There is no such thing as an automatic kick from inside 30 yards in college. They're not that good. They miss all the time. If you look at the rate of missed extra points in college, it's ridiculously high for as easy of a kick as it's quote unquote supposed to be. And then you have to take into account that Michigan's kicker or Ohio State's kicker at that game missed a field goal earlier, which means that on the season, Ohio State was now 2 for 5 on field goal attempts. It made 40% of them. Meanwhile, if you look at Ohio State on offense, 83% of the time Ohio State's run a play this year, it's picked up at least a yard. So if 83% of the time I get a first down and then the game's over, or 40% of the time I can get a field goal and the game's over. I don't know which one's the smarter mathematical play there. I think it's probably the 83% factor. And again, it wasn't the decision. It was the play call, which I understood because it was a play action. Justin Fields rolling out to his right. Now he's got the option of either running it himself if it's there for the first down, or he's got a passing option there. But Indiana made a good play defensively. The linebacker got there. Fields kind of panicked, unleashed a bad throw, turnover on downs. Now Indiana's got to drive 95 yards for the game-tying score. Guess what? Indiana went 3 and out. It's a perfectly fine decision. You get the first down, the game's over. You're freaking Ohio State. If you can't get a yard, what the hell are we talking about you as a college football playoff contender for?
Well, maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we shouldn't.
So is the pass defense really as much of an alarm bells type of moment? Because that's the big takeaway. Because on one hand, Indiana has a group of wide receivers that you're not going to find too many places outside of the college football playoff. But if we're talking about measuring Ohio State against Alabama or other teams that are also competing for national championships, in those matchups that we try and play out in our minds, that is going to absolutely going to be a concern, right?
Yes. I mean, if you look at the rest of Ohio State's schedule this year, I mean, I don't know who's got the wide receiver court that's really going to. They're playing Illinois next week. That's not it. Michigan State. That's not it. Michigan. Sorry, the dirt bikes. They got to plug them in a little longer. Maybe get some battery, some more power, because that's not it. So yeah,
they're not running on gas. Jeez.
Like maybe I don't think Northwestern has the wide receivers, and that's probably who you're going to face in the Big Ten championship. So I don't think it's a problem in that it's going to keep them from reaching the playoff. But like you said, once you get to the playoff and you've got to play Clemson or Alabama or Notre Dame or Oklahoma, then yeah, it's going to be a legitimate concern in those matchups.
So first of all, they should have kicked the field goal. Second of all,
you don't win games with field goals, Barton.
Listen, I am not in favor of Rutgers' garbage ass play for the field goal and overtime move. Like I am.
Run to the middle of the field and just take it.
Like, did you not watch the Rice game like 3 weeks ago?
No, they didn't. I promise you, they did not watch the Rice game.
Like we've already learned this year, Greg. This is not what we do. It's not how we win football games in overtime. But field goal on 4th and 1 aside, I am. Look, the reality is this: we started the year, in my opinion, with 3 teams that were a tier above the rest of college football: Alabama, Clemson, and Ohio State. I think we're down to 1. I think we're down to Alabama, and Ohio State's still a great team. But let's not let's trust what we're seeing here. Like there are flaws. The defensive, the secondary, there are issues. Even the offensive line was getting some issues today with that Indiana defense. They forced turnovers. Like they weren't really. I mean, I think Justin Fields was making some bad decisions, pressing a little bit, but Indiana forced some turnovers. And I think that we've seen this before. We've seen this with teams that we think are good and we convince ourselves they're good, and they're just not as good as we wanted them to be before the season. Again, Ohio State might be the second best team in college football, but I think right now they've got some things they got to fix. They got to get a lot better before they're ready to beat Alabama. And that's the truth with Clemson too. That's the truth with everybody. I think Alabama is the team right now that's not showing the vulnerabilities. And even Alabama's not perfect. I mean, they're you can move the ball a little bit on that defense, but they are, to me, clearly the top team, and the others have shown some warts.
I think that something too that concerns me with Ohio State, I think that they're still really good. But what concerns me a little bit is something I think we saw today, and I feel like we've seen at times in their other games this year where there were questions about their rushing game coming into the season, and it's been there. And I feel like they've had a tendency at times that when their run game is working, they go away from it too quickly. Like I don't know if they're just trying to pump up Justin Fields stats because they want to make sure like that you've heard, like what's the name of the quarterback they just landed the other day, Barton?
Quinn Ewers.
Yeah. And you heard talk about how Ryan Day wants to make Ohio State QBU. And I think that shines through a little too much in their play calling at times, because Justin Fields, like you said, he was not good today. Like he was the first two plays of the game, he was spectacular. He made a beautiful throw to Garrett Wilson on a 65-yard gain on the very first play, then made a 10-yard throw the very next play for a touchdown to put him up 7-0 right away. And then he was pretty average for most part for the rest of the day. He still made Justin Fields plays and still had Justin Fields moments, but he was, I don't know, shaky at best. And Master Teague was eating, man. Like this, he finished the day with 169 yards, 2 touchdowns. He averaged 6.5 yards a carry, and they were eating yards in the ground. They were getting big chunk plays on the ground. They averaged 6 yards a carry as a team. And if you take out, the sack yards, they were averaging over 7 yards per carry. And I felt like every single time that they started moving the ball and moving the chains with their run game, okay, time to start throwing again. And then Indiana, who had been blitzing and confusing Ohio State's offensive line a lot. That's one thing. Give Indiana's defense credit for this. They were doing some stuff. I don't know what they picked up on Ohio State, but they were just attacking them in the A gaps all day and just killing them. And they were getting a lot of interior pressure, and it was messing with Fields. So it's like I felt like Indiana couldn't stop the run real well. And then every time that Ohio State was running them over, they would go back to passing, which was the one thing Indiana was having success defending and getting pressure on Fields and forcing him into bad plays. And I think that there needs to be some kind of self-analysis. If I'm Ohio State and I'm the guy calling the plays there this week where I'm watching the tape, I was like, you know what, man, when my run game's working, I just need to stick with it. To hell with Justin's overall stats, to hell with the Heisman campaign. I'm trying to win games. I'm trying to win a national title. Well,
to this point, he was a 87% passer with no interceptions. Mm-hmm. And now all of a sudden he's 18 for 30 with 3 interceptions. It's like, it's wild. I can't even call it a regression, right? It was just a bad performance. Statistically, it's going to create some, I guess it's going to bring him back to earth a little bit, which again, speaking of small sample size, it's Ohio State's 4th game, right? Like, aren't we allowed to pump the brakes a little bit? And to say, you know what, it's Ohio State's 4th game. Indiana's pretty good. You accept that Indiana is pretty good, because I felt like the conversation as I was witnessing it was really more about like, oh, let's give Indiana that moral victory. Like it felt like there was a lot of back patting going on and deserved, I guess, but still the Ohio State concerns need to be able to exist alongside of how great this close loss was for Indiana, because, I mean, you still allowed 491 passing yards and 5 passing touchdowns from Michael Penix.
Yeah, and I want to point out, too, because I was harping all week on these numbers about how all of Indiana's points or 40% of their points were coming off turnovers, and how they had such short fields to work with because of it. Well, they forced 3 turnovers today. got no points out of it.
No points off the turnovers.
Yeah. Yet on the flip side, a team that had an average touchdown drive of 53 yards coming into the game had plays of 68 yards, 51 yards, 63 yards, and 56 yards. So they had like 5 separate plays that were the average length of their touchdown drives coming into the game.
And as a matter of personal preference, if I'm trying to draw large conclusions, I try to do the sack adjusted team rushing yards, but for the purposes of hilarity, Indiana -1 rushing yards within one touchdown of Ohio State.
Which is even, that's one thing that made it all the more remarkable is that Ohio State didn't even have to worry about stopping the run, and they were still getting torn apart in the secondary. Although I do feel like some of Michael Penix's throws, man, they were complete today. But some of those throws, I'm like, okay,
so
cool.
That was kind of my thing too. Like I like Michael Penix as a player. He's been fun to watch at Indiana. He's a good quarterback for them. But it's not like that. He's not like that good. He's not. It's like
he makes some decisions, man.
He's a good player. I mean, don't get me. I'm not trying to take anything away from him.
Whoever's got fraudulent Fernelli on his mind is now pivoting his gaze to Barton right now. His or her, whoever is upset about this Indiana slander that's been going on the Cover 3 podcast.
Listen, because Indiana's staying in my top 10. Forget that. Actually, I don't know where I had them. I don't know if I had them in my top 10, but they're not dropping. They do not deserve to drop. Wherever you had them before this game, they don't deserve to drop.
Yeah,
do you put Northwestern ahead of them?
I already had Northwestern ahead of them.
What? Where'd you have them?
Let me see. Give me a second. I'll tell you.
All right, because this was the math that I was doing for the tomorrow's top 25 today. Was you've got Indiana, Northwestern, and Wisconsin. So Indiana's only loss comes to Ohio State. They're probably going to take a step back, but you don't know by how much. Wisconsin was at number 10. Does Northwestern replace Wisconsin at number 10? Somewhere around there. I think that's where I landed, like 10 or 11.
I think you have to have Northwestern in your top. I mean, think of some of the teams we had in the top 10 this year.
Well, they're a 5-0 Power 5 team with the top 10 win. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. You have to have them in your top 10 at this point because if
you got to put them ahead of Miami, that's for damn sure.
Yes.
So I had Northwestern at 13. I had Indiana at 14.
Okay.
So yes, I did have Northwestern ahead of them. No, I'm not a hater, but I am a Northwestern guy, and I. By the way, I don't know how much longer I'm going to have this. So right now, as we sit here today, I'm going to bask in this a little bit because listen, guys, it's hyping Northwestern in the spring and summer, like going hard for Northwestern. That's a lonely place to be. Like there's not a lot of reward in that. There's no one calling me up for radio interviews, want to hear my Northwestern takes. Like it's basically just it's lonely work. It's just for me. It's for self gratification. And so right now, as Northwestern is poised to win the Big Ten West before they get another L along the way, I deserve this. There's so many people being like, who saw this coming? Like this Northwestern team, who saw this? Brother, I saw this. I said this. I deserve this. It's been a rough year for me. I had a couple L's along the way, but I am not taking an L on Northwestern.
You know who you were? You were a certain sports writer that we know sitting by himself in the press box just waiting for Barton to come sit next to him and ask him how he's doing.
It's a lonely work. It's a lonely work.
May, June, you called it early.
It was pandemic driven. That was my first lead on Northwestern. It was pandemic driven. So it had to be.
Oh no, it was April. It was definitely April.
I think it was April because it was pandemic hit in March. April, my Northwestern theory crystallized, and it only got stronger from there.
Like the virus.
So 17-7, you get the dub against Wisconsin. There is like number one to factor in the potential overreaction to Wisconsin, right? I get a little bit of a course correction. Okay, we saw this offense look great against Illinois. We saw this offense look fantastic against Michigan. Should we have seen the idea that maybe those two defenses were helping Graham Mertz look good? Because Graham Mertz looked much more he looks like this was his first start, right? I mean, he looked a little bit more like shaken and out of his world today. And credit to Northwestern and the defensive game plan and the execution, but he did not have that same swagger. He did not have that same poise that he has shown so far. I guess he's 23 for 41, 230 yards. But yeah, this Wisconsin offense was just not clicking at all. No points, shut out from the second quarter on. I mean, did you see everything you wanted to see? Is this the way you saw it playing out?
I'm not surprised. Here's a question I want for you guys. I don't want you to look. How many yards of offense did Northwestern have in the second half of this game?
Not a lot.
98.
Oh no, you're way over. 79.
Okay.
Northwestern had 79 yards of offense in the second half, averaged 2.2 yards per play, 1 by 10.
But here's the thing.
Oh, 5 Wisconsin turnovers. I should have mentioned this at the very beginning. 5 Wisconsin turnovers.
Right. Mm-hmm. And this is, I warned you guys. I said it. I said, like, you're going to look up in the fourth quarter. And you're going to know how the hell did we get here? How did we get here? Northwestern is up by 10 and they haven't moved the ball in 3.5 hours.
Oh, I made it my money line sprinkle. Oh, I did on the podcast too. Yeah. I also did it on CBS Sports HQ at 11, which meant Hakeem Dermish was talking about it at 2, which meant he was also talking about it when I was on the post-game show. I got all my flowers for the Northwestern.
But it, like, this is another game this year, like 263 yards. Like, I want to see how many Northwestern hadn't gotten over 300 yards of offense very many times this year. I'm going to pull it up.
I think just Maryland, wasn't it?
Just the deceptive Maryland game.
Northwestern total yards. They went for 537 against Maryland, 273 against Iowa, 317 against Nebraska, and 292 against Purdue. So they haven't topped 320, but once in 5 games, and they've been under 5 yards of play every game at Maryland. Like, it's just this is a slog of an offense, but their defense is so good and they take care of the football and they do all the things you have to do to win at Northwestern.
Just did you see the story after the game about what motivated them?
I did.
The fighting Reese Davises.
Guess the Joey Galloway phrase.
Yes. For our listeners, on an ESPN show, I guess earlier this week, Joey Galloway said that Northwestern was a team of Reese Davises, and he meant it in the they're not very athletic or good kind of way. And Northwestern heard it and took it personally, apparently.
Hey, listen, I can sympathize with that as somebody who has to talk to all you former athletes, as somebody with very little athletic experience.
Big time athlete like me.
Hey, you were drafted.
Yeah, well, you know.
You're drafted?
I wasn't drafted. I was going to be until I injured my shoulder in my senior year of baseball.
Baseball.
Yes.
I mean, Danny was drafted twice by the Major League Baseball draft. You know, it comes around every couple of years.
Danny's gotten picked in 3 different drafts in his athletic life.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's not bad.
No, it's pretty decent.
Okay, so Northwestern takes down Wisconsin. All right. Coming up on the other side, we will take a deeper look into Bedlam. Plus, what did we see out of Oregon that should give us pause about our expectations moving forward, and much more from week 12 next. So, Spencer Rattler, 4 touchdowns, still kind of felt like that Oklahoma team. My biggest takeaway from it was probably more about getting Ronnie Perkins back and didn't think I would be coming out of that game talking about the Oklahoma defense, but man, 41-13 is the final result. Oklahoma looking like it should be on top of the race to be able to play Iowa State, which was a 45-0 winner against Kansas State this weekend. As the Sooners, Sooners are going to win the Big 12, right? That's the way this goes.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. So here's the question: is Oklahoma gonna have like is there a scenario, barring just like nonsense happening, in which Oklahoma actually has a case for the playoffs?
Here's the thing. I think with 2 losses, it's really difficult to make a logical case. Although I think that if you wanted to go with the eye test and if they're finishing really strongly, that is something the committee can do. I think Oklahoma's playoff case is based more on the fact that they just might want Oklahoma in the playoff.
They do have the excuse of the injuries and the suspensions. And since they've gotten Ramondre Stevenson back now, and along with Ronnie Perkins and a couple of these other guys, they've looked better. They've been better. There's been a difference. I can't remember if he came back in the Kansas game or who was
he
the
was
other
definitely
team
back in the Kansas game. He was really good in the Kansas game.
What was who they play after Kansas?
Kansas was last time out, right?
All right. So right. Okay. So who they play before Kansas?
Texas Tech.
Texas Tech. Was he back for that one?
1 second. Yes.
All right. So there you go. So since they've been closer to full speed, they go 62 to whatever, 41-13 against Oklahoma State.
But that is really convenient to be like Ramondre Stevenson is the key to this.
He's not the only one, though. There's also Ronnie Perkins.
Right.
And there's also, I don't know, like Jaden Hazelwood has gotten healthy. There's another suspended guy or two in there. So I'm just saying, like, the committee has taken that sort of thing into account. And if they are looking dramatically different, then I just think it's interesting. I think ultimately it's not going to something would have to happen. Right now, SEC's in, Big Ten's in, ACC is in, maybe 2 ACC teams are in. I think that, for instance, Oklahoma, like if it came down to Oklahoma or say Oregon, with some sort of like 6-0 Pac-12 championship. I don't know. I don't think it's a given you could take the Oregon.
Yeah, I think that if you're the playoff committee right now, your wet dream is making sure that Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and Notre Dame all play well enough that those can be the 4 teams you get. But I do think that outside of those 4, your most realistic options, they would rather take Oklahoma over a lot of other teams that could be available to them if any one of those teams plays poorly enough to fall out. But frankly, I think all those teams could afford to lose twice, and they're still going to have a pretty solid shot at getting in. So I think Oklahoma's still a long shot, but I think it's probably got a more realistic shot than Oregon or USC or those teams do.
What about Texas A&M? 1 loss.
Maybe, but I still think, see, that's that would be an interesting argument.
Yeah.
Because I do think that it'd be hard to make a logical, convincing argument that Oklahoma deserves it more than Texas A&M without it being blatantly obvious that you just want Oklahoma in the playoff.
Yeah, A&M would have to. If A&M keeps playing well, that's probably fair to say that'd be tough to take 2-loss Oklahoma over.
Now Oklahoma is 1 loss short of that money phrase because they can avenge the Iowa State loss in the Big 12 championship game to do the we beat everyone on our schedule, but they've got that 1 extra one that's going to be hanging on right there. But still, if Iowa State continues to keep laying the wood like it was today, then that might be even more of a quality win than anything Texas A&M could pick up down the stretch. I can believe that Oklahoma, in a head-to-head battle of consideration can win some of these battles, at least against a Texas A&M. We start to think about how it might line up against Oregon. But when you talked about at the very beginning, Barton, how you feel like it's Alabama existing on another tier, I don't know if Oklahoma is up there in that tier below Alabama. Like, I don't know if Oklahoma is on the Ohio State tier. I don't know if Oklahoma is on the Clemson tier and the Notre Dame tier.
Well, see, I actually, again, the case against Oklahoma to me is perfectly reasonable. Like, I'm not going to sit here and like jump on the table and say Oklahoma deserves to be in the playoffs. The case to be made against Oklahoma is a reasonable resume case. But I do think, like, if Oklahoma played Ohio State on a neutral field, I'm gonna have to think about that one. If Oklahoma played Notre Dame on a neutral field, if Oklahoma played Clemson on a neutral field, I'm gonna have to think about that one. I don't know where I'd go. I mean, I don't know if I can sit here and tell you. I would have to think about it. I think Oklahoma's playing that well right now and seems to be taking a pretty big step forward defensively.
Yeah, if they don't make the playoff, and again, I think the odds are that they won't, I feel sorry for whatever team they're playing in like one of the New Year's Six games, because they're probably going to get run.
Poor Cincinnati.
Yeah, that's the thing. It'll probably end up being like a Cincinnati or BYU. Although, hey, you know what? That would actually, Oklahoma BYU would be a hell of a bowl game.
Oklahoma BYU would be fantastic. I would take that over Oklahoma Cincinnati. Congrats to Cincinnati on winning today. I thought that they did a fantastic job of being able to rally back a couple of times in that game and come up. Desmond Ridder came up with some clutch plays down the stretch, but today's game made me a little bit. So we've got at UCF was the first one. At Temple's probably going to be a win. Temple lost to ECU today. And then at Tulsa, those are the 3 straight road games. Does Cincinnati hit the American Athletic Conference Championship game still undefeated?
I think there's a very good chance it will. I think Tulsa is the last chance saloon of anybody being able to beat it. And I think Tulsa is capable, because I think defensively they're good enough to at least keep the game close. That way, if it turns into a ball bouncing into the right hands or the wrong hands. So I think that
they're pretty good when it comes down to balls bouncing in the right direction.
It's very true.
Tulsa's they're skilled at that.
Down 14-0 late in the game, 4th down, no time on the clock, game time touchdown, and then win the game in overtime with a pick 6 to cover. Tulsa might be on one. Tulsa might win the conference.
They deserve it after the crappy luck they had last year, man. They deserve some praise.
Whoa. But what about after that ECU game? How could you say that for your beloved ECU Pirates?
Listen, we're in a more forgiving mood after what we did to Temple today. You know what I'm saying? We made Temple walk the plank.
Yeah, both those teams, Cincinnati and Tulsa, no losses, while everybody else in the conference has 2 losses.
I was going to say, speaking of walking the plank, I need you guys and our listeners to do me a favor. If at any point you hear me even breathe the idea or the notion of betting on Kansas State again, just hit me in the face with a frying pan.
I think it's time to come to terms with the fact that the rest of the Big 12 has figured out what their offense is.
Yeah.
And they figured out that Will Howard is not much of a thrower, and they figured out that Deuce Vaughn is their only playmaker. And
was it the 9 players in the box that made you think that, as Iowa State stepped to the line with absolutely no respect for the downfield passing game?
I was waiting for him to bring in a 10th, just as a middle finger, bring in 10 dudes. Like, come on, there you go, 3-on-1. Let's see what you can do.
They held him to 145 yards of total offense?
149 yards, yeah. While they had 539 of their own.
Yeah, I mean, that's it's not effective. It's not effective football.
And that team beat the Oklahoma team that you're gonna have some time thinking about for Notre Dame.
No, that's not that. That was different Oklahoma team. Different teams.
Different Kansas State team too.
That's true. That is a different Kansas State team. All right. So other things that stood out to me, Oregon, 38-35. So no Dorian Thompson-Robinson, like 10 other players out for UCLA in this game. And
I thought they were better without Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
Interesting.
Why is
Chase
that?
Griffin. I thought Chase Griffin was like Dorian Thompson-Robinson is an exciting, athletic, dynamic, fun player, but he also turns that thing around, turns it over, and is loose with the ball and is a little unpredictable. Chase Griffin was just taking what they gave him,
And Griffin had 2 interceptions too.
So I gotta think back on those interceptions. I want to say, okay, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I do think that some of that credit probably belongs with Oregon's defense, because my note from this game is that no matter how maddening Oregon's offense can be, and I'm saying this from a team that won 38-35, but I still feel like Oregon's offense can be maddening. It's still not going to be enough for Oregon to lose games, because the defense is going to be able to force turnovers and come up with huge plays. I mean, there was like a couple forced fumbles early. There was 2 interceptions. Like, this Ducks defense is just so nasty, plays with an edge, is always ball hawking, trying to punch it out. Like, they are going to be able to help for when this Oregon offense is not able to keep up.
But the Oregon, I don't know. Do you think so? Because I sort of felt like Oregon's defense, yeah, I mean they're aggressive and they're going to bait you into some turnovers, but I don't know, on the back end, like, they're missing so many guys. I know they still have some players, but I'm more confident in Oregon's offense than their defense. Are you not?
Mm-mm.
Really?
I'm not all that confident in either side of the ball with them, honestly.
And Kayvon Thibodeau left this game. Noah Sewell left on a cart with a leg injury. Like, there were some significant injuries in this game for Oregon's defense. But I took the note early in the game. I was like, man, this Oregon's defense is going to be able to keep the Ducks in some games this year when the offense is just not able to hit the gas.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Oregon's an interesting team. They're gonna be fun. They're gonna be fun to follow because
For the next 3 weeks.
They're an enjoyable. Yeah, exactly. They're kind of an enjoyable team to watch, just in the style of play. But who else do they have? What's on their schedule the rest of the way?
We got Oregon State next weekend, and then it's Cal and Washington.
Dude, how about Washington? They put it on Arizona. Maybe it's still going right now.
No.
44-27.
And the score is misleading because
they got up to 27.
Yeah, but most of those points came after Washington had pulled its starters.
Yeah.
So much for defensive coordinator Washington under principle.
Shoot, the defense did their part.
The starters had it for you.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I felt like Oregon looked pretty good, but UCLA really had a chance to win it. I mean, there was a drop pass on the last drive that put them in field goal range on that 4th down conversion. So UCLA is they're actually making some strides. Maybe last week against Cal wasn't a total just COVID driven result. Maybe UCLA is starting to turn the corner.
What else? What's standing out?
Is Justin Fuente going to get fired?
Maybe.
Coca, by the way, one of those interceptions Coca did just put in our Slack here. Brutal way to go out. Did y'all see the end of the first half of the Oregon UCLA game? Just like UCLA has the ball on like 50-yard line or something. They throw a Hail Mary, and they're at that point they were up 3, I want to say, or up 4, and gets hit as he throws a Hail Mary, and it goes like 20 yards and falls into a linebacker's hand or DB's hand, and they house it for a pick six, and that ultimately ended up being the difference. So that was one of the turnovers. I knew one of them was kind of funky.
So next week is off for Virginia Tech. They have lost 3 straight to Liberty, Miami, and Pitt. The Pitt result was 47-14. The Miami game, they did not score maybe in the second half, definitely not in the fourth quarter. They led that game, so that's a blown lead. And 38-35, as you will remember, loyal listeners of the Cover 3 podcast, is when the defense gave up a free first down so that they could get a shorter field goal after Justin Fuente tried to ice the kicker and missed out on a blocked field goal return touchdown to win the game. So Clemson's up next on December 5th, and that will be followed by the rivalry game against Virginia, which he lost last year in streak snapping form.
Mm-hmm.
Both of these games are at home. If Justin Fuente loses both of these games, that would be a 5-game losing streak to close the season. And yeah, that one, that might be it.
I mean, that's the thing. Like the Pitt team that he played today, they were missing a whole, I think they were missing 16 total players, but a lot of them were key players.
3 starting offensive linemen, an all ACC defensive lineman, your leading receiver. It is extensive.
Yeah. And what was the final score? It was like what, 47-14? Yeah. And they got boat raced by that team. Pitt put up 47 points on them.
Justin Fuente asked if you would consider taking over play calling during the open week. That's the most ludicrous crap I've ever heard. Next question.
So he's in a good mood.
Yeah. I feel like if you're, I don't know, man. I feel like if you're on the hot seat, you should just, I know it's hard. You got a lot of pressure on you. Things aren't going well, but you may want to try being likable. People might take it a little easier on you. I don't know.
Justin Fuente?
So I'm saying, like, I just think Justin Fuente, that's part of the problem. No one's trying to give that guy a break right now. Same thing with Tom Herman. No one's trying to give that guy a break.
Scott Frost. Is Scott Frost getting a break anytime soon?
Yeah, what about Jeremy Pruitt? Yeah, let's get to the Nebraska, Tennessee. Let's get back into the dream of the 90s. The teams that we've had way too high expectations for, trying to bring it back, run it back with our new hires. Now we've hit were they in the same cycle? Are we in the same, like, is it like?
No, I think Pruitt was a year earlier, okay. I think.
Well, the expiration date says this, and that's not for a couple days, but I don't know. It smells kind of funky. What do you want to do with it?
I think this is year 3 with Pruitt and Frost.
Is it? Okay. Well,
I think so.
Yeah. So who's Tennessee or Nebraska? Who's more unsettled here on this Saturday evening, early Sunday morning?
I would go with Nebraska simply because, like, yeah, Tennessee lost today and it doesn't look good, but at least Tennessee lost to Auburn on the road. Nebraska lost at home to Illinois by 18, and it was not fluky. Like, Illinois just came in there and dominated that game from start to finish. Like, the very second play of the game was a Nebraska turnover.
Well, also the difference between Nebraska and Tennessee to me is Tennessee looks like, in part, it's I don't know, maybe it's a bad thing, but it kind of looks like a coaching issue. Like, it looks like the offense and the adjustments have been failing them. Nebraska, you don't even know where to start. Is it a talent issue? Is it a coaching issue? Is it a scheme issue? Is it, like, what is it? With Tennessee, they're just getting, I mean, every week, second half is a mess. Every week they establish this run game for like no purpose. Like, they establish this run game and then they can't do anything with it. And I just don't know what I don't know that their current offensive philosophy is tenable. So that's maybe you can get it fixed. Maybe you can change your philosophy. Maybe I think they've got a roster that's pretty close, though. I still think Tennessee's got a pretty close roster. I don't think Nebraska does.
Yeah, because I think like Nebraska, they'd reached the point, I think, where they were hoping that Adrian Martinez was the problem. And then they put in Luke McCaffrey last week and they beat Penn State. But again, that was a game where Penn State outplayed them for the most part. It was just a couple turnovers early in the game that set up Nebraska points that gave them the lead. And then Luke McCaffrey turned back into a pumpkin today. So it clearly wasn't just the quarterback situation. There are a lot of problems there. So I think Tennessee is far further along as far as talent is concerned, but I'd mentioned this to you guys in the text thread, and this is very hot takey. And when Jarrett Guarantano threw that pick six, okay, it's picked off at the goal line, very reminiscent of what happened against Alabama last year. But as Smoke Monday is taking that thing 100 yards to the house, Guarantano, who made the bad decision, who made the bad throw, who put his team in a horrible spot, stop chasing him at the 40-yard line. Now, I know he had no prayer of catching him or making the tackle, but just from an optics standpoint, he literally quit on the play and quit on his team. And if I'm Jeremy Pruitt right then and there, he's gone. He's out of the game. He's not playing another snap. I don't care. You
just want him to like run into the tunnel. Just keep on going.
No, but show some damn effort. I mean, to sit there and just give up. I mean, is that not completely indicative of the entire it's a horrible look. Again, I don't expect you to make the tackle, but what's his name? I can't remember 28's name. 28 chased him the whole way. Never had a prayer catching him. It wasn't his fault, but he didn't give up on it. And I just think that if you're a quarterback and you're supposed to be like a captain and a leader of the team and you're pulling that shit, I don't want you as my quarterback anymore.
It's a bunch of crap.
Yeah, it's a bunch of crap.
It's a bunch of crap.
Oh man, I love when Coach Tom gets pissed at his boys.
Just saying, he'd be gone if he was on my not gone, but he'd be out of the game.
This quarterback stuff for Tennessee, man, it's the funny thing is, and a lot of Tennessee fans, because I'm in Tennessee, and so my Twitter feed has a lot of Tennessee fans, and or media, local media, they're fans, and they're all.
Wait, did you say the Tennessee media and the fans are crossover, and we have one of those like concentric circle situations,
like local media? Radio guys and stuff, like they're all, they're Tennessee. They don't like even hide it.
Yeah, people that you're like personally have relationships with.
Oh, right. I got you. Sorry. Yeah. And I don't know if it's gonna be any better with Harrison Bailey. And there's all this like people acting like when he's in, it looks like things look different. He shows so much more awareness. I don't know. I mean, Guarantano is not good. I get it. But I think there's a reason he's playing, and I think until the offense gives their quarterbacks a chance, as opposed to just I think the offense is the problem. I think the system, the scheme is the problem right now.
Do you think that Vanderbilt, that put up 35 points on Kentucky, kind of had things cooking for a hot minute against the Florida defense, they can nab an in-state rivalry win on Thanksgiving weekend?
They're doing it on the regular lately, so I'm not going to put it past them. And that team, I mean, God bless them. Those guys keep on battling. Good for them. They're not a very good football team. They don't have very good players, but they're playing competitive ball. That was one of the more competitive games Florida's played this year. I know Florida probably didn't care they're out there, but hey, I mean, props to Vandy. Their best running back was out. They got the true freshman quarterback in. They just keep on battling.
Ken Seals, 319 passing yard, 22 for 34, 2 touchdowns. He was dealing for a hot minute. Kind of slowed down though over time.
Yeah, if Tennessee loses that game, Pruitt will fall to 1-2 against Vandy.
Yeah, and that's the one. Derek Mason has not been very. He hadn't been like a top tier coach in the SEC, but he's had Tennessee's number. I don't know what his record is, but he may be above 500.
He's 3-3.
Oh, the game's in Nashville. Oh, and it's on Saturday night on the SEC Network alternate. You always take the home dog on the SEC Network alternate.
Principle.
When you're in that 7:30, what is it? The SEC sickos spot on the TV schedule. When you're only enough of a degenerate that you're going to be stuck watching the SEC Network alternate game.
By that game, I think Pruitt, given the way this season is going, I think he would be wise to just make it a freshman game. Make it a JV. All the young guys are playing because the old guys aren't going to give a rip, and the freshmen might actually have a little hunger for them because Tennessee has rolled into that game unmotivated before and hadn't gone well.
Tennessee has not won a football game since Missouri, and that was on October 3rd. And after Vanderbilt comes Florida and Texas A&M.
Oh, Vanderbilt's next weekend.
Yeah.
Oh, sick. We're getting this next weekend.
Yes.
I thought we had to wait for this.
No. That's the thing is there's 2 home losses on the other side of this Vanderbilt game.
Oh, man. This is going to be fascinating.
It's going to be an ugly senior day.
Okay. I think that I'm out of all instant reactions. Where else do y'all want to go?
Penn State's 0-5.
That was the biggest layup of the weekend. I can't believe we didn't play that, or I didn't play that. Penn State doesn't care at all, and I was pretty good. There was no chance Penn State was going to win that game, and that's so.
So is he about to Jimbo Fisher this? James Franklin, Penn State, 2020, Jimbo Fisher, Florida State, 2016.
Meaning like get the hell out of town?
Like take the Christmas tree to the street Thanksgiving weekend.
I don't know. I doubt it. I think this is just going to kind of be a race it season at Penn State. We're just going to get through it. I don't think anybody's happy. I don't think the players are happy. I don't think the coaches are happy. I mean, James Franklin's family, he's not even with them, correct?
That's true.
Yeah, I think James Franklin just
beach house.
Yeah, I think there's a part of James Franklin that just wants to get this season over with so he can go be with his wife and kids at some point because it's got to be miserable for him. I think it's miserable for the team. You're 0-5. Nobody's happy. I think they just want to get it done and move on.
How much time did y'all spend with Coastal and App State?
Hardly any, unfortunately. I was
App State played well enough to win that game.
Just a tad.
Yeah. App State played pretty well, but Coastal, man, they
special season for Coastal.
Special season. They were
some mojo over there.
They their defense played really, really well and ended up helping seal that win. The final 11 points actually came thanks to a pick 6 to cover. This thing was like App State leading late in the game. Then Coastal gets the go-ahead score. I mean, both kickers were just on it. The people watching there in Myrtle Beach was fantastic. You had App State fans that were traveling, fearless about what Myrtle Beach might be like on a weekend like this. It's fantastic.
Hey, LSU won.
Yeah, they did.
Beat our Hogs.
It wasn't like the most inspiring performance. They got outgained like 2x in yards per play.
But Big Ponchatoula hit that game-winning touchdown.
That's right.
Yeah. The other one that was disappointing was Liberty and NC State didn't even threaten the over.
No.
I couldn't get eyes on that. I couldn't get it on my. Did you have it in your area, Chip or Tom?
Yeah. It was on the regional sports networks, so that here it was on Marquee, which is the network that brought the Cubs network. But yeah, I was able to watch it. It's not an entertaining game.
No, it was pretty boring. And I mean, props to NC State. Like, I kind of feel like NC State found itself very early in a game. Like, Bailey Hockman is a limiting factor. After all the flowers that we gave to Bailey Hockman for the way that he had played over the last couple of weeks, made some bad throws in this game that prevented NC State from winning more handily, but it would not have helped the over. I mean, this game very early on was a little bit rock fighty.
Yeah, I tweeted this stat earlier tonight, but now after tonight's win, NC State is 6-3 on the season with a point differential of -2. Fraudulent.
Don't be careful saying that, man. This team's about to finish 8-3, and wait until you
with a point differential of 0.
So they've got the blowout loss to North Carolina. So what else is on there messing up their point differential?
They had that blowout. Yeah, let me see here.
Let's see.
They tend to lose big. They had the blowout loss. They lost to Virginia Tech by 21. They lost to UNC by 27. Miami, they only lost by 3, but it's like when you look at their wins, they got the 3-point win over Wake, a 1-point win over Pitt, the 1-point win over Liberty.
Yeah, they win close, they lose big. But they won close this weekend.
Fraudulent.
I think it was a good win for Double D.
Extend him.
Sure. Yeah, get him now. Get him now before someone else does.
Those recruits, they want to know how long he signed for.
I mean, Tennessee already called once, right? You got to extend him just in case Tennessee calls again.
Mm-hmm.
No, Tennessee's calling Hugh next time. Brother Hughes got that Vols job locked up.
South Carolina's calling Dave now.
That's right. Yeah, South Carolina's gonna call Dave.
Oh, speaking of which, I opened my DMs this weekend just to see what would happen, and it's awful. But when somebody did ask me, a South Carolina fan did ask me if I thought Tennessee was going to fire Pruitt because he doesn't want Tennessee's job to come open because he just wants South Carolina to have its pick of the litter of whoever's available. So that's where we're at now with South Carolina fans taking the temperature. They are scared that Jeremy Pruitt's going to get fired and that Tennessee might be deemed a more valuable job than theirs.
I mean, if the bottom managed to fall out and Phil Fulmer got an itchy trigger finger and Tennessee managed to get open before South Carolina did, that could cause some problems.
So what did our friend from Southern Miss, Scotty Walden, right before he took the new Austin Peay job, what happened?
He got COVID.
Did you see what happened to Louisiana's head coach? Because if we use the Scotty Walden principle, all that time in isolation and quarantine, according to COVID protocol, leaves some time for Zoom interviews. And if you were Billy Napier, now you've got a lot of time. Sure, I know you're running your program through Zoom. You want to run those meetings, but you also have some extra time to kill if you wanted to do a Zoom interview, maybe on a private line, maybe with Parker Search Firm or whoever. It could be with Cover 3 Search Firm. Remember, we are for hire. Mm-hmm. If any university wants to hire us,
we have Zoom.
But Billy Napier, Scotty Walden, I'm just saying.
Napier keeps getting caught walking into his quarantine hotel room wearing a scarlet tie.
Oh, no, that's Cajun red. That's not scarlet.
We'll see.
Yeah, man, that's a good call. That we could have a hire. We could have a hire by the end of the week. Mm-hmm. Congratulations, South Carolina, on your new coach.
Billy Napier. Yeah. Look for it. Keep your eyes on it. All right. We will be back on Monday. Then Tuesday night, we've got our college football playoff rankings reaction show. Wednesday, we will be delivering the locks to you so you can have them for the Thanksgiving weekend. You can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fornelli. You can follow him at Barton Simmons. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Don't play for a field goal in overtime.
Or in the fourth quarter.